Alright, let's start this thing off with a story. Back in the ye old year 2015, before the world fell apart when I wasn't looking, I guess, I was but a wee little 13-year-old lad who could not stand anything to do with horror. Horror movies, horror games, practically anything that could even slightly make my skin crawl, I was like, nope, nah, can't do that. If you don't mind, I'm gonna go off and watch this family show called Doctor Who. There's totally nothing scarring in there. Oh, sweet Jesus! Why do they have to move when you're not looking? What is the point? Thanks for the nightmares, Moffat. The point I'm trying to make here is that when I watched a seemingly harmless video from one of my personal favorite creators, Daniel Hardcastle, aka Nerd Cubed, I had no idea that the game that he played would instill in me the eeriest feeling a piece of media has ever left me with, and how that's one of the most important memories I think gaming has ever given me. That creepy, beautiful, existential game was called The Outer Wilds. Now, don't get me wrong, Outer Wilds is freaking incredible, and I wouldn't change a single thing about it. This video isn't a critique on the game by any stretch of the imagination. More so, it's an analysis of one of the strangest and most influential memories the game has ever given me. For those of you who don't know, Outer Wilds is a game developed by Mobius Digital and released on PC, Xbox One, and PS4 in the last year I felt anything, 2019. The game features a quaint solar system in which the player explores, unraveling the mystery of the ancient civilization that came before your own, and desperately trying to find a way to prevent the universe from ending. We'll come back to that last part in a bit. Don't worry, the sun exploding is unimportant, I promise. I think that's the best word I can think of to describe the atmosphere of the finished version of Outer Wilds. Quaint. You've been listening to the soundtrack this entire time, and I think it does a wonderful job selling off this cozy vibe that the game gives off in spades. I really feel like I'm relaxing at a campfire in the middle of the woods, listening to the world around me. The sounds of the birds in the trees, the crackle of the fire. I can see the stars twinkle above me, warmly inviting me to see what they have in store. And then, you climb aboard your spaceship held together with duct tape and hope, and get to explore those very stars. It's a magical experience, and before I get into anything spoilery, I highly suggest that you check out the game if you haven't yet already. You might be wondering now what any of this has to do with the memory I talked about earlier, and don't worry, we're getting to that, I promise. But first, we have to go back to that video I mentioned. Now, this was when the game was in its alpha state, and not to be rude, but it kinda shows. The graphics were very placeholder and everything looked very crude, and yet the game captivated me. Dan very cleverly left most of the game a surprise, only showing off the introductory planet of Timberhearth and its museum. Safe to say, I was immediately engaged. I needed to experience what happened when you left the comfortable log cabins of Timberhearth. I needed to see where that mysterious music I heard through the telescope was coming from. I needed to know why the planets were acting up. And so, as soon as the video was over, I went to the developer's blog and downloaded the game. What ensued was the strangest experience I've ever had with the game. The thing that interests me most about the alpha is the fact that the endearing atmosphere of the finished game I described earlier is still there, especially through the writing and the music. However, with the game being unfinished, it feels somehow emptier. Like, the lack of detail in the textures of the objects give the sense that the worlds you're exploring aren't complete. Not simply from a game creation standpoint, because duh, they weren't complete yet, but in terms of the universe of the game itself. Like, this is how the player character is actually viewing the universe, with this weird, dreamlike flatness. It reminds me of those early Mario 64 renders, or any early CG art for that matter. It's very surreal. And so, young me explored the creepy museum, got his ship's launch codes, and set off towards the stars. Leaving the planet's atmosphere was an incredibly strange experience. It reminded me of Garry's Mod maps, or when you glitch out of bounds in other games, further adding to the creepy, glitchy, dreamlike nature of it all. I remember that the first planet I visited was Giant's Deep. It was the biggest planet I could see from Timber Hearth, and from a distance, it looks like a gas giant. The idea of exploring a planet with no surface seemed very fascinating to me, so I set a course straight for the massive space orb, yes, that's a thing, shut up, and found out that I was going way too fast. I didn't have time to slow down for a smooth descent, so I braced myself ready for impact with this mysterious planet's atmosphere, and was entirely not prepared for what happened next. Now, the surreal nature of the alpha build had gotten to me a little before, but just a little. This was the first moment that truly creeped me out. Even replaying this build to get the footage, my skin is crawling. I think it's the complete darkness of the sky, or maybe it's the fractured land and ruined buildings that imply the existence of life before. It's almost post-apocalyptic in a way. Looking back while writing this, I absolutely adore it, but at the time I was terrified. I wanted off this terrifying tornado trap ASAP, but I had to do at least a little exploring first, right? Now, in the finished version of the game, the way you unravel the mystery of the Nomai, the aforementioned alien race, was via a translator tool that you pointed at Nomai glyphs to read their prehistoric text messages. This would give you hints as to where to go next or how to solve specific puzzles. Now, some of those puzzles exist in the alpha, so how did the developers convey these hints before the development of the translator? Oh, you know, just creepy projectors that show no sign of wear, yet must be older than your entire species and civilization. No biggie. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the Nomai are mentioned by name at all in the alpha, so I had no idea what the context for these things was. Who put them here? Are they still around? Are they helping me? Do they know who I am? Are they watching me? Safe to say, I quit the game and did anything else instead. Outer Wilds isn't a horror game. I severely doubt that scaring the player was even on the forefront of the developers' minds while designing the game. Hey, what are you doing out of your cage? I'll get to you. Despite this, however, this demo has scared me in a more effective and long-lasting way than any game, hell, any piece of media ever has. Now, why is that? Have you ever laid awake at night? The cold grip of insomnia unable to let you drift off, and so you let your mind wander. Where does it go? Maybe to visit some old arguments you could have won, or perhaps you run through your schedule for the day tomorrow. Same schedule as yesterday. And the day before that. Will it always be the same? Will it ever change? Am I stuck in a loop, unable to break free? What's the point? Is there a point to my existence? To our existence as people? Will I ever make an impact? Do I even matter? That, my dear viewer, is called an existential crisis, and I'm sorry if I made any of you anxious just listening to that. I'm sure everyone has had a similar experience to the one I just described. You give your brain the breadcrumbs of these deep questions, and it will just run off and leave you feeling sad, alone, scared. This is what makes Outer Wilds, especially the alpha, so scary. It's already a lonely existential game, but that existential crisis gets dialed up to 11, because eventually, the sun explodes. This isn't the end, however. The crux of the game is that your character is trapped in a time loop, so you Groundhog Day your way back to life and use the knowledge you gained to progress further in the story. Now, when I first played the alpha, I had no idea that the time loop mechanic actually existed. I thought that was it. The sun explodes and you game over and lose all your progress. The alpha left me feeling depressed when I closed out of it for the final time. I think that was the penultimate existential kick in the teeth for me. I didn't like that these intricate, beautiful planets just burn up. I didn't like that there's nothing you can do to stop it. I didn't like the message I got. That everything comes to an end. When the game finally released last year, I was a little more grown up. I had experienced proper loss and had come to terms with a few of these terrifying existential concepts. I was incredibly excited to finally see this game in all of its glory, to feel the way I felt when I played the alpha. I wanted that existential dread again, weirdly. And when I played it, I was ecstatic to feel the warmth of Timber Hearth again, the melody of those banjos, the shabbiness of my spaceship. But in the weirdest way, I was kind of disappointed. Again, don't get me wrong, the game is incredible, but I thought it lost something in that development time. I left the atmosphere of Timber Hearth in an incredibly immersive way. There were no Gmod shenanigans. I set my sights on Giant's Deep because, of course, I had to, and landed on a planet that was breathtaking. I wasn't scared or creeped out, though. I was blown away by the scale of everything. The only thing that truly scared me in the final product was, of course, you can come out of your cage, the Dark Bramble. A terrifying, foggy nightmare labyrinth filled with space anglerfish that screech, that can also swallow your ship whole because of course. Oh, and the Quantum Moon, because I hate things that move around when you aren't looking at them. Hey, wait a minute. I think I was only slightly disappointed because, in retrospect, I guess I really loved the cosmic horror of it all. The idea that there is an ending now, the goal you're seemingly working towards is to save the universe, slightly soured things for me. The game's still fantastic, but if the existential fear the alpha left me so deeply impacted by was gone, it's certainly not going to be the same. Boy, was I wrong to be disappointed. We're going to be getting into some ending stuff now, so please, I beg of you, if you haven't played this game yet, please do. Then come back. Then give me a like, and a comment, and a subscribe. Please, I need to feed my family, there's a pandemic on, oh my god! Over the course of the game, you discover that the Nomai were searching for this strange anomaly called the Eye of the Universe. This is when you discover the reason for the universe's destruction. It's not because of any Nomai meddling or any other outside force. The universe is just dying of old age. Everything ends. But maybe there's still hope. Maybe if I can take this space battery that's powering the time loop I'm stuck in, plug it into this ancient Nomaian ship, and travel to the Eye of the Universe, I can find some way to stop it. So, in one last Hail Mary, that's one of the tensest moments in any game I've ever experienced. That's exactly what you try to do. You have one shot. No more loops. Deep down, a part of you knows it's futile. There's very little that can actually prevent the heat death of the universe, but you have to try. And so you've done it. You've powered the ship, plugged in the coordinates, and, well, this happens. You know what this sky reminds me of? Yeah, it never left. You make your way through this quantum nightmare wasteland, curse you Moffat, and arrive at this massive, swirling vortex of death that is the Eye. There's only one last thing left to do. I think I'll just let you see what comes next. You wind up back in the museum from the beginning of the game, but it doesn't feel real. Almost as if there's some kind of cosmic force that's helping you perceive incomprehensible events that would otherwise make you go mad through a lens of familiarity. This continues as you find a map of the stars, interact with it, and you zoom out to a scale of the cosmos that no one can actually physically picture in their mind. Go ahead, try. And then you watch the universe you were just in blink away, as if nothing in it actually mattered. Your universe is dead. It's time to build a new one, and try again. I still can't believe that's how this masterpiece of a sequence ends. You gather the last remnants of a dead universe and use that to spark the creation of something new. No, you were never going to be able to prevent the death of your home, but you can give someone else the chance to live. That's who you see at the end of the credits. The existential fear from the alpha never went away, it just shifted into something new, something more hopeful. The alpha left me feeling nihilistic. Nothing I did mattered or will matter because the sun's gonna explode no matter what I do. It wasn't fair. And I kinda loved it. But I thought that feeling was gone from the final game. I thought that the game would let me save the universe. I adored the journey, but I was nervous about its destination. I'm so glad that I was proven wrong. The planets themselves might not have creeped me out like they used to, and the fear of the Nomai that I once had became love through their new writing, which is incredible, by the way. But it's okay. Ultimately, that was the best call Mobius could have made. I kept backpacking through the stars. The planets were so full of history and life, and that made me want to find a way to save them even more, which made it all the more heartbreaking when I found out that I was never going to be able to. It's different from the alpha, sure, but the message is the same. In fact, it has a little more. Sure, things end, but what comes next is gonna be so freaking cool. Just you watch. The finished product left me with something I never thought it would based on the alpha. It left me with hope. It asked all the same questions that keep people up at night, but then immediately answered with a hearty, "Who cares? It may feel like things are pointless right now, but it's gonna be okay." And honestly, I think a lot of us need to hear that. I joked about it earlier and at the beginning of the video, but this is a scary time for a lot of people. It can seem sometimes like nothing actually matters and that every day is folding into the next. Real life can seem like a time loop sometimes. But Outer Wilds posits that we can eliminate this pattern. All we have to do is steal a space battery and break free from the cycle. Thank you, Mobius Digital and Outer Wilds, for inspiring me to make this video and break free from my cycle.